Hello, everyone. Hello, watcher. Hello, listener. If you're catching up to this show of the Running Tales podcast on Spotify or on Apple or on Google Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast, because I will tell you something, we will be there as the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. So please go to wherever you're listening. If you're listening now, thank you very much for joining us. And we've got a really special show today because I'm bringing one of our Everyday Athlete Podcast Network stablemates on board, Joe Hardin. Joe is the guy behind the Beyond the Finish Line podcast, and he's got a fantastic story of his own as well. He told me that he will pursue running until the day his body gives out. And it's just amazing because it wasn't so long ago that Joe's body and mind were both giving out due to addiction. And he's got this fantastic story where he's gone from living with hangovers, living with debilitating anxiety, stuff he's all really completely honest about, to running ultramarathons. And he calls these ultramarathons kind of the equivalent to his sobriety journey, where he will be absolutely inspired by them, and he will push through challenging moments and learn new things about himself. So folks, let's not mess around. Let's get Joe on and let's have a chat with him and find out a little bit about Joe Hardin and Joe's story. So come and join us, Joe. How are you today?
Hi, good, Craig. Thanks for having me. This is amazing.
You are absolutely more than welcome. Now, Jason Berhamundi here is the man behind Run Try Bike, which people go and check that website out. But which is the organisation behind us all on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network is producing this. So I will get in trouble with effectively the boss, isn't he? I'll get in trouble with the boss if we don't have a little chat first about this amazing podcast network that we've been part of. So Joe, tell us a little bit about your podcast and how you got involved in that.
So my name is Joe Hardin, obviously, and I'm the host of Beyond the Finish Line. And I got involved with Beyond the Finish Line and Run Try Bike not back in January, so really not that long. It feels like so much longer because I'm having a blast. It feels like I've known Run Try Bike in the community my whole life. But back in January, I reached out to Ohm. I actually watched a podcast called the Midpacker Pod, hosted by Troy Meadows. Shout out to Troy. And I heard Om Gandhi on there, and he was talking about this amazing platform, and they're talking about like everyday athletes. And and I love the mantra. There's a place at the starting line for everybody and everybody. You'll hear Jason and Ohm say that, and that really stuck with me. And I was like, I messaged the Run Try Mag Instagram page, like, hey, I have a story, and it's weird. It was just weird how responsive and excited they were to have. I was on talking to Ohm within a couple of days, and they made me the cover story of January, which is even more incredible. I'm just like, wow, like, I guess I do have a story. And then I talked to Ohm a little bit and Jason some more, and they asked me to write an article for them. And I've been writing monthly for them. And then I get this email out of nowhere, like, hey, would you like to be a podcast host? And I'm just like, this can't be real. Like, I screenshot it. I sent it to my wife. I was like, I can't believe, like, I sent it to Jason and Ohm. And I'm just like, you want me to be a podcast host? Like, yeah, like, we'd love you to be a podcast host. And it's just like, the rest is history. And it's been awesome. Like, I get to talk to people, and like, I learn something new every episode that I do about myself and about somebody. And so that's kind of my, I guess, long story, how I got into podcasting Beyond the Finish Line with the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, with the likes of you and Lori and Adam and Jason and Ohm. And it's incredible being a part of this community.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but one of the things I love, you kind of mentioned it there about learning new things about running and learning new things about different athletes out there and how they approach this sport that we all kind of love. Is there anything in that? I think it's 6 or 7 episodes you've done now. Is there anything in that that's really stuck out to you and gone, oh man, wow, that is just incredible. I've never thought about that as part of my running journey before.
Yeah, honestly, it was something recent, and maybe it wasn't something I learned about like a running journey. But so when I interviewed Jason, my last episode, he said something is just like, just go. Like, and that kind of rung true. So it kind of taught me like it's okay to bet in yourself and say yes to scary things. And I may not have learned that from one person, but if I had to like distill what I've learned from everybody on the 7 episodes I've done so far, is it just get out there and do it. And it doesn't matter if your story doesn't look the way you want it to, or just do the work and show up for yourself too. I think I've learned that the most with a lot of endurance athletes. I mean, everybody that's doing this has taken a big step, and a big scary step, and I think that's the big lesson that I've learned is not to be afraid to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, listening and reading your own personal story, I think that's something which you may not kind of realize it, but I think you've definitely taken it on and taken, huge leaps into the unknown with the writing and the podcasting. But perhaps we'll get into that in a bit, because I do want to talk to you about the second project you have on the network, which is the What's in Your Earbuds, isn't it, with Ohm, where you just talk about all the fantastic music that you listen to while you're out running and so on, and I just love it.
Yeah, it was kind of just so. I always want to know what people are listening to when I see them on the trail or like in the gym or cycling or just walking, or I'm like, man, what are they listening to? And that's something that I will never. I hope I never lose my curiosity about what other people are listening to. And I don't know how we just like decided to go for it, but we were chit chatting back and forth, and I like to ask that on my podcast if I get a chance. And so yeah, we just same thing. We just kind of went for it, right? It could have easily just been like a throwaway idea, but I mean, look at how like the response just from our first episode. I mean, um, so I mean, it's just like a ton of fun, and I love the idea of like sharing music with somebody is kind of like its own love language, right? You're really actually kind of, it is like a window to your soul. Like, hey, here, like sharing music to me is like, I mean, that's beautiful, and I just love all the different genres. I love hearing something new I didn't even know existed. And I mean, music's just like a celebration of like humanity, right? Because you get it from everywhere, all walks of life. There's like no bad genre. It's just there's just so many. So it's cool to be able to do that like with this platform, and we're just having a blast. So
Yeah, I listened to the first episode. I know there's a second one out there which I need to catch up with, but I've also sort of been listening to the music on the Spotify playlist that you've now created as well. And it's really interesting to hear you sort of talk about, there's no bad genres of music and all that sort of thing, because I think I've kind of fallen into that middle-aged man habit of just listening to stuff that I know and like, and I'm like, I know I like that, that's fine. And some of the stuff you were talking about, so I've never heard of that, or oh, that's far too rocky for me, or it's just that's not my sort of thing. And I thought, you know what, Craig, embrace this and listen to it. And I did on a run I did at the weekend. And Joe, I loved it. I loved it. All of it. It was all really like banging as I'm going along. So yeah, I think that's a really good message, and people should try that and just experiment with the music they're into, because it kind of chimes, I think, with what we're doing, which is trying something weird and wonderful out on the trails or out when we're running.
yeah, absolutely. And I hope we get all kinds of stuff, and just yeah, I love where it's headed so far. And like, I mean, we had like almost to me, like a beautifully overwhelming response to across all the platforms on this too. So it's really cool. Hopefully me and Ohm will learn how to organize a little bit better, because right now it's just like a music free for all. But there's like a beauty in that chaos on that playlist too, which has been a lot of fun to listen to while you're running or training, or like we were joking last night, I was like mowing the yard while I was listening to a little bit of it. But
yeah, I mean, I'm waiting actually for it to go a little bit more eclectic, because I know Owen was talking about some of the really strange things he listens to when he's in the middle of those 200-mile runs he does, and I can imagine something like Pearl Jam being followed by, I don't know, I'm a Barbie Girl or something. So,
or like the Jurassic Park playlist.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it though.
Just one last question on the music side of things, just quickly. If you had just say, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, but say 2 music recommendations that you'd give to people listening to this, to runners listening to this, what would you tell them?
maybe it's a biased opinion because it's one of my favorite bands, but listen to everything Queens of the Stone Age and everything Radiohead. Never a bad song. But a new artist, Norman Sand. It's like a. I think he's from Texas, or it's good, but it's got like a Brooklyn hip hop sound to it. Norman Sand, check him out. He's got like tons of new songs coming out. So that'd be my new recommendation. Getting away from like my normal like dad grunge rock phase, but
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because I know Radiohead really well, obviously, and Queen of the Stone Age and all that. But no, I'll have to check out with Norman Sands. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, not
we'll check that out. Nice one. Cool. Well, Joe, I want to explore your story a little bit because I mentioned some of it as we in the intro there. And people who've been listening to you for the first 10 minutes of us chatting and watching you will have seen someone who's kind of quite confident. I think, a podcaster out there, happy to talk to all these wonderful people. But that wasn't the case not so long ago, was it? Do you want to maybe just sort of tell people, I suppose, what if people have met Joe Hardin? I'm not exactly sure the time frames here, but 5-10 years ago, who would they have found at that stage?
it's weird that you say confident because I'm like always scared shitless whenever I'm doing it. 5-10 years ago, Joe Hardin. I mean, I'll be honest. I wasn't always the best version of myself. 10 years ago, I was in pretty bad shape, um, and I used to be embarrassed about who I was, how I used to be, but I've kind of learned to embrace that. And I had to be that person. I had to go through all that to get to a end of the day, and I'll go back. So I've struggled with substance abuse problems my entire life, and me 5-10 years ago, I was broken. I was running out of rock bottoms, and I would just find a new low every single time, and I did that to I used that to self medicate because I dealt with I had a pretty volatile childhood, and that kind of translated to adulthood where I never really dealt with those things because I just masked it, and I looked for answers in the bottom of bottles or a prescription pill, and I did that most of my life, dating back as early as middle school, up until 4.5 years ago, December 1st, 2019, my sobriety birthday. I call that the day of my rebirth. It was the day I knew I took my last drink. I took my last pill. I did my last drug. Like I knew that was it. I didn't have any more left in me. I knew I was running out, and I wasn't gonna be long for the world if I didn't stop right then. And that was the day.
And you quite often hear from people who've been through that kind of journey that you have to reach the bottom before you can sort of bounce back and move back up. It sounds like that almost may have been the case for you, Joe.
Yeah, I just kept finding new bottoms, but it got real bad. You know, I got okay. So I guess I can back up some more. I got really sick in 2018, 2017. I had a 2.5 liter lung abscess in my lung that made me really sick, and my lung collapsed, and I went septic. And I was going through bouts of pancreatitis from my alcohol abuse and different health problems. I was morbidly obese, and I just kind of gave up. I just was like, well, I'm going to die anyways. So I just kind of accepted it. And if anything, I dug in deeper into drugs and alcohol. And then I went through a divorce from my kids' mom. And, I had custody of my kids on weekends and stuff, but I wasn't there for them. I wasn't present. I might have been physically there, but I wasn't present. I remarried someone who may have not been the best person to be around when you're in active addiction, because we basically, it was like fueling the fire and water and gasoline all together. And that night, we got into this big fight. I can get as down and dirty as I can with this story because I want to be transparent. So we got in this big fight, and I got thrown out of a bar head first. Literally, they used my head to throw me through the door, and I got my truck and I took off driving, and I passed out while I was driving. I woke up in a ditch, um, and I called my ex-wife, the mother of my kids, and just talked, and she helped me. And it always meant so much to me that the last person that she should care about, um, she would talk to at 3 a.m. and she helped me through that. Going through, I mean, I went through painful withdrawals, and I bounced in treatment, or outpatient rehab, and all that stuff. And we've since mended that relationship. We actually got remarried March 31st this last year. But that I just knew, like, I had like this moment when I woke up in my truck that night that I was like, this is the last rock bottom that I've got. So, and I knew, like, I just had like they like alcoholics will call it like a moment of clarity. I was just like, this is it. Like, I don't get any more of these. So
Yeah.
that's a bit.
And was that, sorry, go on.
Oh no, go ahead. And that's like a kind of a bit into that rock bottom. But
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, because I know, sobriety journeys they're not always straightforward. People can sometimes slip back into addiction and so on. But was that it for you? That was the last time you've touched anything, and you've kept to that to this very moment.
yeah, that was the last. I mean, I quit before and had, I mean, multiple dozens of relapses. But I don't know what
Yeah.
it was. It was just like, it was like something just like a light bulb went off. Like, this is it. Like, you're out, man. Like, it's time to change. And so that was the last time. That was it. Been clean ever since. And it's, man, I didn't know that life could be this awesome. Like, it was
Yeah.
terrifying, but wow, like, look at what's happening. I mean, this is amazing. So
Yeah. And I know from sort of reading your story that running has been an incredible part of that journey. But you're always sort of keen to say that despite the impact running's had, it wasn't running that achieved and helped you to maintain that sobriety. It was kind of the support of your family and following the 12-step program and all that good stuff.
yeah, I kind of went the traditional route. Like, I got sober during COVID, so that was a little bit tricky, and I didn't really know anything about like Zoom meetings and all this stuff. So I kind of gutted it out for a little bit, until I found a recovery center here locally that I volunteer. I'm actually I'm a chair member of the board now. Life's Journey Recovery Center. Shout out to them. But and not and I love, and I use a 12-step program in AA, and not that I don't love those programs, but I kind of found that I don't always fit like in that box as much, like with AA and 12-step lately. So I've been using like the running community and running to carry me forward. I still like to give back to those programs, but I certainly owe my continuing sobriety to running, and especially overcoming mental health struggles and issues with anxiety. Like you mentioned.
Yeah, because I guess that's one of the big things. You mentioned how substance abuse and alcohol abuse were being used to mask some of those mental health issues. Well, you do this fantastic thing of kicking the addictions, but that doesn't get rid of the underlying problem. That doesn't mean that suddenly all of those anxiety issues and everything else that you were dealing with disappear overnight. You had to then confront those, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I mean, being sober is like one little slice of a pie, right? Like, you can be sober, but you actually have to do work on yourself too. And because I'm wired like an addict, so I can just quit drinking and be like, "Hey, I'm sober," but am I sober minded? If that makes sense at all. Like, so I've used running, and I've used running as a big part of, like you said, confronting those, why am I the way that I am? Like, why am I an addict? Why do I behave the way I do, with my addictive personality? And running has certainly given me like perspective of, like, I understand who I am. Every The more and more and more as I pursue training and longer distance, as you know, you learn something yourself every training cycle. you really get down, especially ultra distance, you strip away all the crap on the outside. Like you really have to know who you are and why you're doing it when you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a bit of an odd question, but obviously with your addictive personality, do you feel that in some way you've become addicted to running itself? And is that always a good thing, or is sometimes it's a bit like, oh God, I'm just doing nothing but running?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because that's been like kind of my recurring theme, like in my head. Like this is like another addiction, and you have to learn how to balance it. So, because once I find something I love or I like, once something makes me feel good, I want all of it. Like I don't ever do anything just a little bit. So it's like once I find like it's like something makes you feel good, you want more of it. So running has definitely been that, but I feel like running has given me a better understanding of why I am that way. So it's been teaching me kind of how to actually like throttle that back and kind of deal with like my all or nothing mentality. I mean, I think you still have to have a little bit of that in you, if that little bit of that full send every once in a while when it comes to ultra distance. But at least now I'm learning like, hey, this isn't something that you have to do. It's something that you want to do because it'll make you feel good. Like it's okay if you don't run 60 miles this week or whatever. So it certainly is an addiction for sure. But you know what? I'm not waking up on, sick on a bathroom floor or, you know, waking up in a drunk tank or, so I certainly feel like it's a much better addiction, maybe not cheaper. me and my wife like to joke. I'm like, man, it was like being an active alcoholic, like cheaper than being uh,
Yeah, I always love the idea that running is a cheap sport where all you need is a pair of shoes, and the further you get into it, the less true that becomes.
I'm paying someone's mortgage payment on ultra sign up like like all years. So.
Yeah. Um, let's get into Joe Hardin's running origin story then, and explore how you kind of got into running from, you've got into that state of sobriety, but I think you were kind of thinking, how do I work on my general fitness now, and what can I do to sort of improve that?
Yeah. Okay. So my first sobriety birthday, me and my family went out to dinner. We celebrate my sobriety birthday more than my actual birthday. I'm 40 something. Like who cares? So we go out to dinner. There's a gym right down the road from this restaurant we were at that my wife still attends, Anytime Fitness. Um, and she's like, "Hey, for your first year, you should get a gym membership." Like, and I was like, you know what? Because I started losing some weight after I quit drinking. He's like, well, I'm starting to feel better. I'd like to actually maybe move my body some more. So we walk in, I get a gym membership. Um, that next morning, I get up really, really early. I go in at like 5 a.m. because I was ashamed to exercise in public. And luckily, anytime you just go in there anytime you want. So I would just walk on the treadmill, 3-4 times a week for 30 minutes. And I started feeling really good. Like I didn't know I could even walk that far. I mean, there was a point in my life where I was on oxygen in the hospital. I couldn't walk more than 100 feet without needing oxygen. So to me, this is a miracle. And then I started lifting a little bit of weights, doing some rowing, and I'm just like, I saw this flyer on the gym door. It's for like a turkey trot. I was like, I come home, I take a picture of it, I come home, like, do you think it'd be like a wild idea to do this 5K this next November on Thanksgiving? My wife's like, no, that's great. Let's train together. So we train for this 5K, and everything goes well. The day of Thanksgiving Day, we run the 5K. It was a blast. And after it's said and done, I'm just like, man, I kind of miss the training part of it. Like, it turns out that the race is just kind of like, a little extra cherry on top or whatever. But man, I really love training for this stuff. So we signed up for the Indy Mini Marathon, which is still one of my favorite half marathon distances. And I really, really love training for that. Like that got into some like longer runs. And then after I completed the Indy Mini, which is a really cool experience if anybody ever decides to sign up for it, I signed up for the Jackson County 50/50, so 50K, and I really, really fell in love with trail running. Like the first time I ran on trail, first of all, I didn't even know you could run in the woods. And the first time I ran in the woods, I ran with a buddy of mine, and we, like Jason likes to say, we went all gas, no brakes. We were running up hills. I was destroyed, and I was like, well, obviously this isn't the right way to do it. So I dove into YouTube, and I fell in love with the trail running community, and that's how I got started into ultras. So my first 50K was, I went from half marathon to 50K, and I live for running in the woods every day ever since then. So
yeah, I mean that's a quick acceleration and a quick jump to go from kind of that turkey trot event, which is that 5K when those ones,
yeah,
because we
5K,
don't 5K to be looking at 50K not so long afterwards and jumping up those distances. I mean, I don't know whether that comes back to sort of the addictive part of your personality to just going out and getting great goals, but there's a scenario here where you could have got sober, got into fitness, got down the gym, and just done the odd 5K every couple of weekends, but that wasn't for you.
no. There's something about like the long grind of like a long training run. It just really speaks to me. You really get, like I mentioned before, you really get down and dirty and like who you are, like why you're doing things. I mean, I just love chasing those longer distances. Every time I do like a longer distance, it's just like, I didn't know that about myself. Like there's just like a beauty in like that long grind of like a really nice long training run. And plus it's like, who doesn't love being in the woods that long? It's
Yeah.
man, running in the woods breathes life into you, man. It'll change your whole day, change your whole outlook on everything.
Yeah, definitely. I love getting out on the trails, and it's only something which I've found in the last just over 2 years, really, getting out and doing trail stuff. I've been probably doing regular running a bit longer than that, but yeah, I think I did a confession from the trail, which is something else they do on a run, try, bike with people to sim, where I revealed that terribly for a long time I was just a road runner, but yeah, getting out there in the woods and finding different things, and I think sometimes not. I mean, you can be really competitive with ultra races, of course you can, but a lot of the time, particularly on the trainings, it's just about trying to go as slow as you possibly can and enjoy and see as many things as you can along the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of like they say, it's like like the day of is just kind of like the victory lap for all your training. I mean, I just love the journey. I mean, I'll never podium a race. I mean, unless I age into one or whatever. But I love the mid backpack and like the party pace. That's where you hear the good stuff. The good stories. The camaraderie is great. I mean, not to take away from podium placers, but it seems lonely up there, right? So it's just like, man, in the back of the pack, that's where all the good stuff's happening anyway. So I love being back here. Like this is home for me.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm definitely with you on that one, and having some of those conversations as you trek along at some ridiculous time of the day or whatever. So tell us about some of the races you've done since then, because you mentioned you went on to the 50K, but I think you've done longer distances than that now.
Yeah. So after the 50K, actually, I'd go back. Before my first trail 50K, I did a 50K backyard. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't just as special. I love backyard ultra marathons, but that first trail 50 really made me feel like a trail runner. But yeah, so after the 50K, I did the grind on the grid backyard ultra. After that, went 50 miles. It was all road, but the backyard ultra scene is so cool. It's like imagine like a run club vibe. So it's like everyone starts and stops together, kind of. And I just love that kind of feeling of those backyards. Like some of my closest friends that I still run with, I've met at previous backyards that I've done. So I did that 50 miler, and after that, I went to the Momo Fo 100K, which was a brutal trail race. 100K, 7 p.m. start time. 9,000 feet of vertical. For me, I live in the flattest place on earth. 9,000 feet of vertical might as well be Mount Everest to me. But and it didn't go the way I wanted it to. It didn't look the way I wanted it to look. I DFL'd, but man, I loved every second of it. I mean, I'm proud of my DFL trophy. It's hanging up on the wall behind me. And when I got done with that 100K, I had like the immediate feeling. I'm just like, I'm not done. Like I need to go further. Because I was just getting into that good pain cave, like, and man, I love that state. I know that sounds weird to say, and that might speak to, like you said, addictive personalities and all that stuff. But I find like a serenity in like the pain cave. So while I was basically recovering with my feet still propped up from the 100K, I signed up for my first 100-miler, the IT 100. So that's coming up in October. I've since done some 8-hour stuff. I celebrated another 50K 2 weeks ago. I actually ran 54 miles at 24-hour this last Saturday. So yeah, I just keep chasing distance and keep learning, and the community is where it's at. Like I realize throughout all this, if I can't run anymore, I'll still be a part of the trail running community on some capacity, whether it be volunteering, writing, whatever it is. Like this is what I want to do. It may not always be me running, but I want to be a part of this community forever because they gave me a place. They gave me a place where I fit in, and that's something I never ever had in my entire life. I always felt like an outcast, and I would always drink, to chameleon my way into social circles, and my story and sharing my story very transparent. The running community, trail running community, and realizing that my story is not really that unique in that community, and you can be open with these people, and they'll bring you in with open arms and a hug. So I'm going to be a part of this for as long as I can, whether it be running or writing or whatever it is. But
yeah, I think it's a really interesting part of the ultra community and the trail running community, in that I've spoken to quite a few people over the years of doing running tales who have that kind of, whether it's a sobriety journey or a weight loss journey, and I suppose you could bundle it up as kind of an adversity journey, if you like, and a journey of not feeling they fit necessarily anywhere in society. And ultra running seems, for so many people like that, to be the thing that gives them that place. I mean, I remember speaking to a guy called Ben Davis over here, and he and another chap, Richard, did something called the Grand Union Canal Run, which is 144 miles, I think. It's pretty flat, but it's still 144 miles. It's crazy. And he was saying, yeah, for me, it's just the place. I think he used these words. Sorry, Ben, if I'm getting you wrong here, but he says something. It's like where the weirdos go to converge, and we love it. And I think there's a little bit of truth in that. And there is that. It doesn't matter what your story and what your past is, because you can come and chat and run those miles, and you're pretty much welcome, aren't you?
yeah, I always like to say it's like they gave like a misfit toy. It's like a home for misfit toys, So,
Yeah.
and we're all in this together. We're all out here doing the same thing and suffering and laughing. And the camaraderie is amazing. I mean, yeah, I agree. It's kind of amazing, like how comfortable you can feel in that community, and it's just something I never had before, and it's been a wild ride since I've been a part of it.
Yeah, and do you think that's that community and that being able to talk about things, I guess, coupled with finding yourself in nature, is why you feel that one of the reasons you feel like you know yourself a lot better than you ever have before?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can. There's like a vulnerability. Like you can be more vulnerable in those situations, right? There's like a beauty about being outdoors too. And I think I didn't think about this now, but you're so far detached from like everyday life, like screens and technology. I bet that's what makes you like more comfortable with being open and more vulnerable people. And then you're also, it's kind of, it doesn't matter if you're in the front or the back of the pack, but you're all in that together too. And I think that's what brings everybody together. And honestly, I've never seen a more inclusive community ever. So I think it's just like you said, like being in nature just kind of brings out the best in people in those situations.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree. And while not encouraging people, if you're on your tech now listening to this, don't leave us right now. But when you finish, go out there in nature and switch off from everything, turn your phone off and all that stuff. Because I think it's so important for us to get away from staring at these screens that we spend sort of so much time looking at and becoming addicted to. Be addicted to the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, but let everything else go. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that I know you do, Joe, is the other thing I know you do is you're a run commuter, aren't you? Tell people about that,
Oh
because
yeah,
I love the idea of that.
yeah. So this started back in January this year. So training gets more intense, right? Like more and more hours. And sometimes I'd be gone for 5-6 hours on a Saturday, and then have to turn around and do a 3 or 4 hour on a Sunday. And I was just like, man, I feel like I'm just gone all the time. Uh, and obviously, we talked about this in the green room, but I'm a Harvey Lewis fan, and Harvey Lewis had just set the world record at the backyard, 108 hours, right? 450 something miles. I can't remember exactly what the math is. But I'm just like, man, what are the like? I love backyards, and I'd like to eventually go 24 hours or something in a backyard. I'm like, well, to get great, you watch the greats, and I watch Harvey Lewis pretty closely, and I see he's got this really cool backpack on him. It's like, I'm gonna take a shot and ask him what it is. So I sent him a message, like, what is this backpack that you're run commuting in? Because the joke is he would bring a pizza to he'll like bring a pizza with him in his backpack and groceries. He was kind enough to send me the link to this zip pack, because up until then I've been running in like a Walmart brand backpack, it did me okay for a little bit. So run commuting just kind of started as a means just to get some free training time in and not take as much time away from my family. And I realized that after a few months of that, it transcended just training for me. It was, I was learning that, I mean, man, I was getting to work and I just felt so refreshed, just like a little bit of time in the sun. And it was kind of amazing what just running to work would do for my outlook. Like I would just maybe a little bit more productive and a better attitude. And then, if you have kind of a cruddy day or whatever, there's no way you can hold on to that after 3 miles in the sun. I mean, so it's kind of become something bigger than just training miles. Um, it's I love the lifestyle of run commuting too, right? And you're getting less windshield time. Kind of an unintended consequence I didn't think about before until talking with John. It's not making a huge impact on the environment, but you're being a part of the change for changing our impact on the environment. So it's kind of like change into different motivations besides just trying to get training miles in now. I've been cycle commuting a little bit more lately because I've been having to be pretty intentional about my training runs for the 100 miler, but I'm still doing my best to stay to bike or run commute, and it's been awesome, man. It's certainly.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, actually, something you touched upon there in terms of kind of the unintended consequences of running and so on. And I think there is a real correlation between the more you get into running and the more you get into ultra running, the more you suddenly find that you're unconsciously I think because you're out in the environment so much, you suddenly find that you're being kinder to the environment naturally, and you have a greater affinity with it. And suddenly, before you know it, you get in the car into work doesn't seem like the right thing to do anymore.
No. And you'd be amazed what you see. Like I've lived in this town for years, and I've seen stuff I didn't even know, like little nuances of the town, like little back alleys, like all these cool little things, like that I never would have noticed if you're just like kind of mind-numbingly driving from point A to point B. And also, it's made me a little bit more aware of like my footprint on the planet too, like I mentioned before, because it's kind of discouraging how much trash you see on the ground. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, so it's really changed my outlook on like, being more mindful about how much waste I produce, and which is really hard to do. Because I mean, we're kind of a plastic world now, but and something John said when I interviewed John Swain, shout out to John, the owner of Zip Running, is he was talking about like they basically don't have a winter anymore in Minnesota, and that's troubling. So if you don't run commute, if you're able to run commute or able to cycle commute, I certainly suggest it, if not just for anything for your own physical health, but it gets bigger than that, obviously.
No, I think it's fascinating. I mean, I'm kind of lucky enough that my job is literally a 15-minute walk in, but I do walk in rather than drive. But I also have that same experience of finding places. I mean, I live 10 minutes from the biggest town in the UK. I live basically next to an industrial estate. It's a nice place. It's a villagey sort of feel, but it's not. I'm not out on the Dales or something like that somewhere. And I went out again at the weekend and was just sort of running around some of the local trails, and I found this pretty small, kind of quite gnarly trail that I've never been down before. And I went down that for just 100 meters, and kind of the review. I took a picture of it on my Instagram if anyone is bored enough to go and visit there. But yeah, I put it on there, and it looks like I'm in New Zealand, and that I don't know, Gandalf's about to come around the corner or something. And it's like, that's incredible. I can find that 500 meters away from what's an industrial estate, and these things are kind of out there wherever you live, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. Once you start doing that, it's cool. Like all the little gems that are around, you just wouldn't even know, all these little trails, all these little parks, and you wouldn't know if you were just, you know, 30 miles per hour everywhere you go. So yeah, that's cool that you found that, and it's so
Yeah.
close too. I did see the pictures; it looked beautiful too, by the way. So man, nice find.
Oh yeah, thank you. It was I sort of, well, I knew the lake was there, but it's wherever you take pictures, or almost wherever you take pictures of that lake, you've always got some industrial building in the background, and it ruins it. And finding it down this little alley, this little trail, managed to get that view. So I was really pleased with that. And I just sort of, and again, it goes back to what you're saying about not getting competitive on those training runs and enjoy it. I just stood for 5 minutes and didn't stop my watch and didn't worry about it. And yeah, it's kind of a nice tranquil escape from society for a little bit. And then you get your head back down again and get hot and sweaty once more. But yeah, that's, I think, part of the joy of what we do. And I think it goes back to that message that kind of Omen and Jason like to give out on Run Try Bike of this being something that everybody can do, because you take the competitive element out of it and you just enjoy it, and there's something for everyone, isn't there?
Yeah, I always joke that I'd probably get faster if I didn't take so many pictures. But man, like, it wouldn't be any fun if you didn't take the pictures. So I don't even care
Yeah.
anymore. I just let my watch do its thing. I'll try to get as many pictures, like, run the trails, take the pictures. Who cares about the rest of the stuff? Is kind of my outlook now. You'll get faster maybe one day, but if you're not enjoying it and enjoying yourself along the way, what's the point? So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, and I don't know whether you've had this experience as well, but since I started slowing down and caring a bit less about my times and my pace on my longer runs, um, I think I've got a PB at pretty much every distance when I've come back to do the racing again, and I've stopped getting injured. So bizarrely, it has all these unintended consequences again.
Yeah, I think I had a run coach tell me the same thing. I was joking around, like, oh, I'd get faster if I go take as many pictures. He's like, no, man, take the pictures. He's like, you're slowing down, you're not getting hurt. He's like, if you're setting PRs on training runs, then we're not doing our job right. So I'm just like, all right, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, you got to enjoy yourself along the way. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So have you got any other big races? I mean, you mentioned the 100 miler coming up. I think you've even looked and got tempted by going even further and doing a 200 miler.
Yeah. So I talked to a lot of people that do 200 milers, and they've gotten to me, like talking to Jason, West Plate, listening to Casey Sanders. Jennifer Goins from Team BU. I've got a so something. Even I think even if the 100 miler doesn't go well, I'm still going to go for this. There's something about that 200 mile number that's really getting to me, and I'm going to have a shot at this. And I think it's going to have to be the Oregon 200. So yeah, I kind of got my sights set on. I haven't actually signed up, but that's my goal. I maybe I'll do the 100 miler, and maybe I'll be like, well, maybe this is as far as I need to go, but I haven't found that yet, and I'd like to keep pushing and learning, and as long as I'm operating from a place that that I love and from my heart, I'm gonna keep pursuing these goals until a number makes sense, and that's as far as I need to go. But so we'll see how this goes. It sounds wild, but I was afraid of a half marathon. Then I was afraid of 50K. I was afraid of 100K, and I think that fear, you have to sign up for things that scare you. Like things that challenge you. So I'm going to keep pushing that envelope until I find the end. So
Yeah. I mean, I love it, and I wish you all the best, Joe. I mean, I can't contemplate doing 200 miles. I probably can't. I mean, I did 100K a few months ago, so that's as far as I've got, and that is far enough. But who knows what might come down the line. But one of the things I find really interesting, and again, I've spoken to people about this before, is I think sometimes once you get onto that journey of doing longer and longer runs, the runs that become scary are the short ones. When someone turns around and says run 5K or 3 miles as fast as you can, and you're like, oh no way, man, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny because that conversation's come up a lot, especially on Run Try Bikes platform, because people will say, well, it's just a 5K. And it's like, no. Like, I'm terrified of like, I hate speed work. Like, I'm scared of tempo runs. So there's no number that's not scary. It may be 5K for some people. It may be 100 miles for some people. Yeah, man, likewise. I think I'd rather run 50 miles than a half marathon. Like the worst recovery I've ever had was after a road half marathon. So yeah, those are terrifying. Those short runs are terrifying, and they're hard. Like you have to run fast. We're not running fast on trails. We're eating snacks and walking. We're like bullshitting with people. Like we're taking pictures. So yeah, those short road runs are scary. Absolutely scary.
For sure, and short trail runs are kind of even worse. I would say after I did the 100K, which was around the Isle of Wight, and A, I loved it, but B, it was hard. But C, people saying, oh, that must have been the hardest thing you've ever done. I was like, oh no way, the hardest thing I've ever done is this trail run. It's 4.5 miles. It's called the Dovedale Dash. It's through the dales in, I think, Derbyshire, and it's crazy, Joe. You got to run across the river. You got to slide down this hill full of mud, and everything's mud all the way. And I got to the end of it, and I've never been so tired at the end of a race. And it was 4.5 miles.
Oh man, yeah, I've had that too. Like I did a trail half marathon last July, and same thing. It was just like absolutely destroyed me. It was so hot, and I was like, I think I'd rather run longer than distance than this. I got kind of stuck in like a single track like conga line where everybody was running fast too, and I couldn't get out of it. So
Yeah.
I just like blew up that whole entire race. But
and food is the other thing that you touched upon there. I mean, that is the dream of the ultra for someone like me, definitely, who likes their food. Is throughout the training you can keep eating, and then even throughout the actual race you can have full scale meals halfway around.
yeah, oh yeah, I love aid stations food, man. They're like quesadillas or like pierogies or like the 4 hour I did last week, and I was eating Oreos the entire time. I was just there for snacks, man. That was the best part.
Yeah, definitely. And it's being able to eat all that sugary stuff, all those sweets, all the stuff that mum and dad told you to stop eating when you were 10, and you've kind of not had since, and suddenly they're the best things for you to eat, aren't they?
Yeah. Like Uncrustables is the way to go. That's my ultra fuel. If anybody needs race day fuel, try Uncrustables. Uncrustables. They're like a peanut butter and jelly like crustless sandwich. They're amazing. Oh, they're phenomenal. That's Ultra Fuel right there.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like the way forward. I mean, we don't. I mean, I think sort of peanut butter and jelly or and jam is quite a US thing. We don't really have it over here. Jason says they're made by Schmuckers. Smuckers.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
people are listening who aren't sure, and then he also says they
yeah,
should become a sponsor for the show. Come on, Smuckers, get on board.
yeah. I would stand behind that product. I've used those for every single long distance event I've done. So yeah,
Yeah.
come on, Smuckers, let's have it. Send me a lifetime supply of strawberry. Yeah, every single training block I've used.
Oh, I have to find out whether we can get hold of them somewhere in the UK, or I'm sure
Oh,
I'm sure there'll be somewhere I can order them over from overseas, from America or wherever, and get them in get them back in the future races and so on. Yeah, Joe. The other thing I was going to sort of ask you, I guess, was kind of going back to the podcasting thing. And do you have, when you look at what we're doing now with the Everyday Podcast, Everyday Athlete Podcast Network? I get that wrong every time. Do you think, where could we be with this in 4 or 5 years, or is your aim, I just want to keep telling these stories and speaking to these amazing people?
I mean, just from the time that I've been here, it's amazing how big how much the community's grown. I mean, I could see that this network getting really big. I mean, look at the work we're doing. There's a lot of podcasts that focus on the elites, and I'm not taking away from that. Like, I love the Jims, the Courtneys, the Zach Millers of trail running, and other. I mean, I wish I knew more big names and triathletes, but I'm sorry I don't. There's a lot of space for those elite people, and I think that's awesome. I think it's so cool, like podium holders and winners. Like, I love Mark Cavendish, but I think what we're doing is unique in the fact that we're talking to the everyday athlete. Like, I'll say it again. There's a place, a starting line for everybody and everybody. I love when Jason says that. It gets me fired. So I think we're doing something unique, and we're talking to everyday people. I mean, this is people who have jobs, people who have kids, people who are going through, like me, addiction struggles, mental health struggles, body image issues, stuff we all deal with, and we're all here, we're all showing up for ourselves, and I love being able to talk to these people, because every single person that you or Lori or Jason and Ohm talk to is so inspirational. And I may not absorb every single podcast and everything that's said on every single podcast, but I bet I carry a little bit of a fragment of each podcast that I've listened to the network with me. And you learn something new about yourself. You're learning about people. But at the end of it, you're kind of learning about you, like in a kind of a selfish kind of way. It's like, wow, like I didn't know that even about myself, So I think this is a unique opportunity, and we're giving people a voice that they don't think their story is unique, and it is. Everybody's story is amazing. And I don't know what this will look like in 5 years, but as long as I have the opportunity to keep talking to these amazing people, I'm here for it. And I'm just having so much fun. It's so cool getting to know people. Yeah, I mean, that's all I've got about that. It's just such a unique opportunity what we have. So.
No, I think you're spot on, and one of the things I love is just getting that inspiration from those people. It's talking to people while it's helped me in my own running journey. It's helped me with various sort of mental health issues or questions over the years, when you suddenly have a chat with someone and you're like, oh wow, look what they've gone through, overcome, look how strong they can be, and actually they're telling you anyone can do that, and you think, yeah, I can do that as well. And hopefully that's the part of the message that we're sort of able to get out to people. And some of the episodes that I love more than others are, I mean, on Running Tales, before we became part of this network. I was kind of lucky enough to speak to people, or my wife Michelle was lucky enough as well to speak to people like Liz Yelling, who won medals at the Commonwealth Games, Bruce Fordyce, who obviously won Comrades year after year after year and is a
nice.
fantastic runner. And those were brilliant. But then I remember speaking to a lady who had cancer, and she'd done nothing, inverted commas, nothing more, because I think it's amazing what she did, than run her local park run. Got out and run 5K. She'd never been a runner. She had cancer. And that was the process for her. Running was the thing that helped her get over her cancer and confront it and become part of a new community. And for me, listening to her story was kind of bigger than the stories of the Bruce Fordyces of this world. So yeah, absolutely loved being able to tell that kind of story. And I think that's probably how you feel about it as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so cool to, especially if someone's sharing a story, like I said, like someone sharing a story they didn't think it was worth sharing. And it just like, it really resonates with people. Just like, I mean, yeah, to me, that's so fulfilling to see or hear or be a part of. So I agree with that.
And going back to your own journey, Joe, would you have ever believed when you were at the depths that you were at that you could be sitting here today talking about how you're planning a 100-mile race, talking about the idea of a 200-mile race, talking about the fact that you're a podcaster, that you're out there meeting these amazing people, and that you have, I think it's fair to say, and I don't, that you're thinking this in a non-arrogant way, if that makes sense, but you're sort of proud of yourself, and you feel, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm doing well. Would you ever have imagined that you could reach this stage?
Absolutely not. I didn't know that I was capable of anything worthwhile. I mean, I just honestly, I thought I would just drink and exist like I was before. Sometimes it takes me like a while to like, I wake up and I'm just like, I do a little bit of, like, I try to practice gratitude and personal inventory. And I'm just like, I can't believe, where I'm at now. If I could talk to myself then, I would have thought I was full of it, So absolutely not. The fact that I'm talking to anybody on like a platform I couldn't have done years ago. I probably would have had a panic attack or shut down or whatever. But so yeah, it's been a wild ride, and it was tough to go through, but I needed to go through it because now I know what it's like to feel this good. And I don't always feel confident. I don't always feel, like worthy, but I'm working on that, and that's something we all have to work on. This is an ongoing project. I'm not fixed, necessarily. I'm always going to have to work on myself, and I just want to share my journey as loud as I can, because I believe you have to recover out loud and recover really loud, because I want other people to know that it's possible, that this life is possible, and you can get sober, you can get better. It's not easy, but yeah, I'm blown away. I mean, I can't believe I'm here sometimes. So yes, it's wild. It's really wild, but I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, and I think just finally, that's a really important thing that you've touched upon there. That sometimes on a podcast like this, we might come across as confident. I've had guests on here who've done extraordinary things, and then they've told me afterwards, "Oh, Craig, I've never been so scared as talking to you on that thing." And I'm like, "Well, you seemed absolutely on top of the world and really confident." And if you're listening out there and you are that person with a bit of anxiety, so are we. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Oh
true.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm always scared, and I'll go back and listen to this. I'm like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? But man, it's just like, we're just having fun, right? And yeah, no one's paying that much attention. So put yourself out there. I mean, no one's nitpicking you. You're only nitpicking yourself. So, but yeah, amazing.
Brilliant, Joe. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on Running Tales on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Folks, if you're listening to this, if you've enjoyed Joe's story, make sure you check his podcast out. It's absolutely fantastic. It really is well worth an hour of your time to have a listen to that and to all of the other podcasts that are on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. Give us a like, give us a review wherever you are, and come and join us again next week. And thank you so much again, Joe, and for joining us. And thanks to everyone for having a listen.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.